Welcome back, and I'm joined now by Tara Mondou, who is the author of The Little Girl in the Mirror. Thanks so much for chatting with me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
So you have a very interesting story which leads to this book. I think that what strikes me the most is that you had no previous writing experience when you wrote it. So that's
right.
a huge inspiration to a ton of people out there who are all, like for me, for example, who've kind of sat on the fence going, well, I wouldn't even know where to get started. So I feel like your story, the story in the book is inspirational, but then yours is as well. So it's twofold. So I'd like to start off by asking, who is the little girl in the mirror?
That's a good question, because sometimes we don't actually get to that answer.
So we're going to start with it.
Yeah, let's start with that. So the little girl in the mirror is my mother. So this story is really about her childhood growing up in the 1950s. She spent, half of her childhood in Stratford, Ontario, and the other half of her childhood in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. So the little girl in the mirror is my mother, but the reason the book is called Little Girl in the Mirror is because during the time between 5 years of age and 10 years of age, she had a few very difficult experiences in her life. So she didn't really have a lot of friends, and she wasn't really encouraged to talk to anybody about what she was going through, and she really felt like nobody was listening anyways. So what she ended up doing was becoming best friends with the little girl in the mirror, who is her reflection, which is kind of sad because that was really her best friend. And she would tell me that when I was little. She's like, you're so lucky you have all these friends. My best friend was the little girl in the mirror. But I think, seriously, the little girl in the mirror was the way that she was able to cope with her situation. So she wasn't able to talk to anybody about it. So what she would do is once in a while check in, whether it was through a compact mirror or the mirror on the wall, to check in with her little friend to sort of say, like, how are you feeling? How are you dealing with this? Let's try it this way, or maybe we can be happier if we do that. So that's where the little girl in the mirror comes from.
And the artwork on the book, the mirror that's used, was actually her mirror.
Yes, and I didn't even realize that until I was writing the book. So really what helped me write the book was all of the photographs that I had. So my mother passed away, my grandmother passed away, and of course I'm the one that got all the photographs, the furniture, and as I was going through all these things, and what's great is now you can take a photo and scan it and really zoom in and look at those details in behind. And in behind, I was writing the story, the little girl, she's in this apartment, she's looking in the mirror, and in that exact photograph that I was basing that chapter on, I scanned it, I looked, and in the bedroom in behind was the mirror, this mirror.
Wow.
So, and I have that mirror, I have that dresser to this day. And so the person that did the cover art for me just said, take a picture of the dresser itself and send it to me. And that's what became the cover.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you talk about how when you were younger, your mom would try to tell you stories as a way of therapy or healing, and you had said, I don't want to hear these stories anymore because they make me sad. So it boggles me how you were able to write this so vividly as if you had lived it, even though you hadn't really heard the stories. So how were you able to channel her like that?
I don't know exactly. Like I said before, at the time I hadn't written anything before, so I just sort of sat down and I took the photographs and I would just almost have a vision. It was very strange. I don't know if it was that divine intervention thing or my mother's energy hovering around me. I believe in that. So I would just look out the window and sort of close my eyes and envision what that would look like, what that chapter would look like, how she felt, what she was thinking, what was everyone else in the room doing, and I would just sort of type out what I thought I saw. But what was really neat is there's a lot of different stories in this book and a lot of characters in Stratford, for example. And I've had people call me and say, that variety story you talk about where the little girl goes to buy ginger ale, I know that store. I know the lady that worked there. That's exactly what she was like. How did you know that? And I'm like, I don't know how I knew that. I just had this vision of how this woman would have been. And that's happened so many times throughout this book. It's a little unnerving, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then the other part of it is that you'd had no writing experience before this. So tell me how you went from finding photos and journal entries to creating a book. How did that process happen for you?
Well, although I'd never actually had any, formal training in writing, I obviously must have some sort of hidden talent with writing. I mean, I was always the I'd written stories as a little girl. It was my favorite subject in school, and I always loved English, and I've always read. So from the moment I could read, I have been reading a book every single night. I cannot go to bed without reading a book. So I think that's part of it. You need to be able to write, you need to be able to read.
Right.
Yes. And I think discipline, just, sitting down and giving yourself the time and the space, to work on it, to keep typing, understand that you're going to have to edit. So you just get to type it all out and then go through the editing process, which I recommend to all, writers and authors. You need to get edited a couple times. And it's just, you just pour your heart out. You just get emotional. You open yourself up and understand that at the end of the day, you're going to have a shower and cry your eyes out in the shower and then dry your tears after and get back to life. But it's emotional. You have to let yourself be emotional and be open.
Yeah, and just get it all out and don't worry about what it looks like
first
draft, right?
Yes.
So talk to me about some of the obstacles that you faced writing this book.
Obstacles I faced, the one was, it's been published. When I was talking to the publisher, the first decision to be made was, will we use the names, the real names, the real dates, the addresses, the times, the locations. And we did talk to a lawyer, and the idea was that, yes, I could. So the main characters in the story had passed away already.
Okay.
So although someone might be upset about what I've written or maybe didn't wish that I hadn't written it, there was no defamation of character, and there was no risk there. But I really wanted to use the real names. This is her story. And if I couldn't use the real names and times and places, really what was the point? So a big decision was to really use all of the information that I knew to be true.
So we have about 90 seconds left. I want to talk about how you published. How did you go about doing that?
I have been published. The publisher is Meraki House Publishing. It was through a friend of a friend, and she's a woman who believes in supporting people that are inspiring and have passion. We clicked as soon as we met, and once I told her the story, we sat and we cried, and we decided to come up with what the book might look like. So getting published for me wasn't too difficult. There's nothing wrong with self-publishing either. So probably with the next book, I would look into self-publishing. I think both ways are a good way to go both processes are good when you're looking to publish.
You also talk about surrounding yourself with other writers, and you've created writing groups as a result. We have about 45 seconds left, but talk to me about that.
Yes, I co-founded a group called Cambridge Authors. So I realized that there's a lot of questions with not a lot of answers. So I thought, let's just create a group, and if I can't answer your question or that person can answer your question, we'll bring in the experts. So it's a group that we've developed. It's a support group, and through that group, what I've been able to do is provide opportunities for those authors to go to events or to look into publishing or marketing or promotion.
And would that have made it easier for you if you surrounded yourself with writers from the beginning?
Absolutely. It's something that you do alone, and to not feel supported is a bit difficult, so find a group.
So you can find more information at TaraMondou.com. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time on In Studio.